Sheriff, how are you?
Good. What about yourself?
Pretty good.
She gets my head cut off. Legislature going on.
You want me to pass them out on look this side, bro? I can get five of them. Here you go, sir. Chuck, I'm not sure if I can get one more.
But I'll stay in contact with you as soon as I find out.
Thank you.
Morning. Good morning. How is everyone?
That's Michelle.
Oh, Michelle is fine.
William?
Sure.
Yes. Oh, well, I was kind of sitting apart. We don't know. Well, I'm not saying anything, but. Does Chief Palmer need a seat to sit in? He's standing up. He's standing up. I mean, he's got a long time to stand. Yeah.
You're asking for too much effort there.
Judge? No problem.
I'd like to begin the meeting with a prayer from the words of Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr. Eternal God, out of whose absolute power and infinite intelligence the whole universe has come into being, we humbly confess we have not loved Thee with our hearts, souls, and minds. We have not loved our neighbors as Christ loved us. We have all too often lived by our own selfish impulses rather than by life of sacrificial love as revealed by Christ. We give in order to receive. We love friends and hate enemies. We go the first mile, but dare not travel the second. We forgive, but dare not forget. O God, have mercy upon us. Forgive us for what we could have been but failed to be. Give us the intelligence to know your will. Give us the courage to do your will. Give us the devotion to love your will. In the name and spirit of Jesus, we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Now the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Call the meeting to order and ask the clerk for the roll.
Magistrates Elkins. Davis. Blanton.
Here.
Constantopoulos.
Present.
Thompson. And Graham is out.
Appears we do have a quorum. Item number 5, adoption of the agenda. Do I have a motion?
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor respond by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That motion carries. Item number 6, consider approval of the minutes from the December 22nd, 2020 fiscal court meeting. Do I have a motion? Is there a second?
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Is there any discussion?
I've got a couple of things,
Okay.
as I go down. Underneath, about halfway down the page,
First page.
is
Okay.
where we noted in the minutes, about the pay increases. Two things with that, one of the reasons for leaving the meeting with illness, I question that. The second is, it says motion carried 6-0. Did we vote on that, I guess the pay increases, there should not be a vote.
No, it was no vote. You're right.
I think we should examine the word illness, and then on down, I don't know if we note that one of the magistrates was absent from all these other votes after that, or not, if that matters even, I don't know, just a question.
County Attorney Elkins, you follow that?
I did not. I was reading something that was late on here. I've seen it for the first time. I heard what he said about the 6-0 vote and illness, but what was the other issue?
Should it be noted that one of the members was absent, I guess after roll call for the rest of the votes?
Well, the minutes of the fiscal court reflect, the work that the fiscal court actually did, which I think to minimize is the votes it took on proposed orders, and to maximize would be whatever the pleasure of this court wants to include. So, minimally speaking, in other words, you don't have to include much of what's here, but you have to include the actual work that the court did, votes and so forth. To answer the question, do we have to include anything else? I don't think you have to include it, but you could.
I'm going to say my interpretation of that is if you would like to make an amendment to the minutes and you can get a second and a vote, then we'll vote on it. Otherwise, I assume it would stay as it is.
Yes, I'm okay with the minimal, I personally, I don't know about the other magistrates.
Well, we have in there that he left the meeting, so.
Okay, and if the illness is okay with the magistrate, I'm okay with it as well.
That wasn't, I mean, that, from my recollection, I mean, you weren't ill, were you, Robert? I mean,
Yes, I was ill.
Well, you were angry, frustrated. Is that quick illness?
Gentlemen, let's just be honest about this. We did something we shouldn't, and I left the meeting. If you want to take it out of the minutes, feel free to do so. That's your call. But the fact remains, we did something we shouldn't.
Well, Judge, in the interest, I'd like to make a motion.
Okay.
Share one's opinion. I would move to amend, just say Magistrate went and left the meeting, period, which I think factually is accurate, rather than giving reasons why he left the meeting or somebody's interpretation of why he left the meeting. He left the meeting. And then, after that, I think we strike the motion carried 6-0, which is clearly inaccurate.
That was my fault, yes.
After that, Judge, I think it's inaccurate to say all magistrates and judges, and Judge voted yea because all magistrates weren't present. So I think we want to accurately reflect what happened and put that in the record. We say passed on a 6-0 vote, or it passed, all magistrates, except for Magistrate Blanton, and left the meeting, or who was absent, or whatever. That's nomenclature to use, but I think that's a more accurate reflection of what happened in those subsequent votes, rather than saying all magistrates.
Well, can I ask a question? Because that'd be like today, Magistrate Graham is out. You're still gonna put all magistrates voted yea. You're not gonna say all magistrates with the exception of Graham.
Well, Graham was not here for any of it.
Right.
Here you have a situation where a magistrate was here for maybe the first third or half of the meeting, and then left the meeting after roll call and was absent from that point forward. Or you could say all magistrates present, but I don't think it's accurate to just say all magistrates. That's not what happened, and I don't think that's what the record reflects. So that would be my motion.
I'll second that.
Okay. My understanding of the motion, and correct me if I'm wrong, is to strike, to put a period after the word meeting in Magistrate Blanton then left the meeting, period. Strike due to illness, strike motion carried 6-0, and then throughout the rest of the minutes, you would like them amended to reflect. Do you want individually how the votes were, or do you just want it to reflect all?
I think if it's a unanimous vote, you can just say all magistrates present.
All magistrates present. That makes sense, sure, okay. All magistrates present and judge voted yea. And then on the ones that have a conflicted vote, the vote would still say as it's written in here, if there are any.
They're already 5-1.
Okay,
yeah, there's a couple there, 5-1, yeah.
so just insert present after the words magistrate. Okay, I'll accept that as a friendly amendment.
That was my understanding of the motion when I seconded.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor respond by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Nay.
That motion carries. Item number 7, consider approval of the minutes from the December 30th, 2020 Fiscal Court Special Call meeting. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor respond by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? That motion also carries. Item number 8, public comments. First up, we have Kevin Ryan from Parks and Recreation. The presentation regarding pool lighting.
Thank you all for your time. My name is Kevin Ryan. I'm the Aquatics Director for Winchester, Clark County Parks and Rec. I'm coming here today to request funding from the Clark County Fiscal Court Community Fund regarding the lighting in the pool area. When they were installed, I believe it was 12 years ago when that facility was built, those lights were not intended for an aquatic environment. And in the intervening years, we have now lost I believe it's 25 or 26 of the 43 lights in there, so needless to say, it's quite dim. It is becoming a safety issue to the point where the health department has said the next time they inspect us and it's in the evening after the sun goes down, there is a chance they would close us down just due to inadequate lighting. The big problem with closing outside of the daylight hours is most of our rentals and revenue generated is in the evenings through swim teams. We've got 3 swim teams that rent there, coupled with swim lessons and scuba. So with that being said, that is our request. In front of you all is an estimate for the materials and the labor. All told, that is about $11,000.
Do we have a copy of that in there?
I've got another copy if you need it, sir.
Okay.
You can have my copy.
Sure. Thank you, Robert.
I think you got that in an email about 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, I've got the email on it. So you're requesting a total of how much?
$8,430 for materials plus $3,300 for labor for the install.
So a total of 11,730?
Yes, sir.
And could you give a little bit, in the text here, there's an explanation of how it actually should save money?
Well, it would save money in that we would be replacing with LED bulbs versus the incandescent that are in there right now, coupled with we would be continuing to generate revenue if we were able to stay open as well.
The replacement cost of the current bulbs that aren't LEDs is how much?
I believe the bulbs themselves are $500 a piece.
I'm sorry, I know Jeff Lewis would have been here, but he couldn't make it today.
Correct.
Which is why we're doing this in public comments. So I may be putting him a little bit on the spot with some of these questions.
Sorry to interrupt. Maybe
Sure.
we can put this on the agenda for the next meeting and flesh it out. Actually on the agenda rather than back and forth public comment. Just my suggestion. If you want to carry it on this morning, we can. That'd be my thought.
Well, I think we should at least let him finish his presentation.
So I don't know the exact, I believe that number that has been quoted to me is each light itself is about $500 to replace each one individually with the incandescents. So over the long term, this would be a cheaper option, yes, sir.
Yeah. So, and the math that I did was basically if each bulb is, each of the current bulbs, the replacement cost of the current bulbs, they're going out about once a month. You know, in a matter of before a year's up, the cost of replacing the bulbs is more than the cost of this order, if I did the calculation correctly. Would you agree with that?
Yes, I believe that's correct.
Okay.
And the fund committee did discuss this when we met back in September. The Parks Department didn't have their final numbers. In fact, their estimate then was in excess of $17,000. So the fund committee did discuss this, and we did set aside some funds for this. We didn't know the amount at the time, but when we met, we did discuss it. We did set some funds aside for this particular request that we knew was coming.
Daniel, you're on that committee, correct?
Mm-hmm.
You have any thoughts to share?
No, I mean, we did discuss it I know Joe was there, we did discuss it as a potential of this coming down the pipe, and we allocated some money to the side there. I think you remember it in the Exhibit A, we had put a little notation there that this would be potential, but we didn't have the figures at that time, so.
Gotcha. County Attorney Elkins?
Yes, sir.
Have you had a chance to, I know I sent you some documentation concerning that fund. You think there's any issue with purchasing lights out of it or anything?
I don't think that the materials I was provided contain all the information necessary within them, but that leaves me only to wonder whether or not there was more that could be seen, and I don't know that's the case either. But based on the materials I reviewed, I think it would be an acceptable purchase.
Okay. All right, well, I'll open up the floor to a motion or no motion at all.
The equation first, the committee set aside $117,000, is that correct?
I believe that was the right number.
So
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I believe I sat in on one of the PNR Zoom meetings where they discussed actually bringing the cost down a little
I
bit.
think that was actually in the order that we approved when we allocated those funds to other agencies.
And so the committee was prepared to spend this money and it's not spent somewhere else or allocated for anything else. Then I make a motion that we do this work for $7,730.
A motion has been made and seconded. Any discussion?
I will add to the, this discussion that, you know, the Parks Department does have a nonprofit arm now that has been set up, so they do qualify for those other items as well as the reason that the fund was set up, which if you read those documents, it clearly states charitable and educational. And the court currently does expend funds from that 95 account to pay our payments for the natatorium. So this has a history of having those funds expended for the Parks Department. It is our property. We do need to maintain it. It does generate revenue. So, you know, I think it complies in every aspect of the nonprofit fund by having the charitable aspect as well as receiving funds from the program in the past. But I will abstain since I'm on the Parks Board.
I'll add to that, I think everybody on this board knows that I'm usually generally opposed to spending money which is not already on the agenda for today, but I think this work basically has already been done, we're just continuing it now. That's the reason I made my motion.
Any further discussion? Seeing, go ahead.
I was only going to comment that I don't think, since it's not as if Master Plant would receive anything personally from this vote, I don't think his abstention would be required. I think it would be proper for him to vote.
Okay.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor respond by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? That motion carries. Could I ask you, do you have time to stay until after the meeting for a check presentation?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Next, we have Becky Kissick from the Clark County Health Department with a vaccine update.
First of all, thank you all for having me this morning. Judge Pace and I had the opportunity to speak on Monday at the DES meeting and just share some information about where we stand here in Clark County with vaccine distribution. In front of you, you'll see a copy of a full presentation. I won't go through all of that with you this morning, but we'll kind of hit the high points. So one of the things that many of you have probably heard me say from day one is that the situation is fluid and it is ever changing. As soon as this presentation was put together, and quite frankly, I made a Facebook post about it last night on the agency's webpage, you saw the CDC change the guidance. So we're going to be changing again. But for right now, want to just say that we are currently still in 1A, which means we're still vaccinating our frontline healthcare workers as well as our first responders. I'll tell you, our first responders are pretty much taken care of. We're wrapping up those folks this morning, actually. We're set to do about 110 doses today. You'll see the stats are in there. We received our initial allocation of vaccine on December 28th. We received it at 10:17 a.m., and we were pushing our first doses at 11:44 that morning. I'll remind you that it takes about an hour to thaw that vaccine, so we were really proud of our turnaround time. This is one of those things that we continue to push out vaccine as fast as we can. We have to be very diligent in who we are providing it to right now, but we also have to plan because once I open vaccine, I have to utilize it, and I have to utilize it in groups of 10. So you've seen us be very targeted in who we've reached out to, kind of following the guidance that's been provided both by the state but on the federal level as well. As of this morning, we're looking, as of tomorrow afternoon, so I should say, we will have distributed 500 doses ourselves. Another 320 doses have been provided in conjunction with Clark Regional Medical Center. We could not be more thankful for their partnership. They've really allowed us to expand our reach, and so we will continue to work with them to push out vaccine. Our hope, of course, our next big phase for the health department will be focusing on vaccinating our educators. They are what many of you have probably heard referred to as 1B. By 1Bs, the health department is going to partner with the school system and push that out in conjunction with our community partners. At the latest, we're looking to do that on February 1st or by February 1st. We've sped that timeline up a little bit. But we're also working with Clark Regional Medical Center to begin pushing out those 70 and older, or doses to those that are 70 and older. Having said that, we never know when we're going to get vaccine. So when we receive vaccine, we have a plan in place. We have folks that we know are on our list, and we're going to continue to work down that list to get everybody taken care of as fast as we can. What you will also see in your packet or in your handouts are some frequently asked questions. Those are things that we've received kind of posed from the public or those individuals that may or may not be interested in the vaccine, and so wanted to include that in the information you were provided with as well. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
So let's say an individual were watching today and they were over the age of 70, and the only question they really have is, how do I get myself on the list for the vaccine? How do I get it into my arm the quickest possible way? What would your answer be?
The easiest thing to do is to call the health department, and I'm going to be very transparent with you all. We have 7 phone lines coming into the health department, and they are ringing busy most of the day now. We have set up a separate email account. It's Clark HD doc@ky.gov. Folks are also always welcome to email me directly as well.
Are you saying that if they could send their information to that email address and they would be added to the list?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
Clark HDDOC@ky.gov?
that is correct.
Okay. And my understanding is on Monday you received approximately 200 doses for individuals who had not already been inoculated, for lack of a better word. Is that your typical dosage you've been receiving so far, or is it?
That's our second shipment, so we're not really sure that we can necessarily say typical. Those 200 doses were doses that we requested specifically to be able to finish our 1As. So when we started down this path, we were initially instructed to look at our first responders and make that kind of your initial request for doses. After that, healthcare workers, frontline healthcare workers, and rightfully so, were added to that list, but it also changed our requirements. So we had to request additional doses. That's what the 200 is. We do hope to get in a more regular pattern, whether it be 200 to 300 a week is what we're hoping for.
Any other questions? Robert?
I would assume that since this is a brand-new program, unfortunately, we had to go through it, it is creating extra demand on your staff and time and effort and paperwork and administration, that sort of thing. And I would further assume that when you start doing the second doses, that would increase even again. Do you anticipate being able to handle it without additional staff? And how's all that working for you? Is it creating issues, or just a little bit of that background? Just because I'm curious.
No, absolutely. So one of the things that you make a great point, because the health department is still doing the health department's work. We're still running a clinic, we're still doing environmental services, we're still doing all of those things that we've always done. However, I've had to pull staff. So for example, my nursing staff today, of course, is providing vaccines. They also, some of that staff serves on my disease investigation team. I myself am doing disease investigation now, and so we've been able to reallocate and pull resources from state contracts, that kind of thing as well. But, it is a capacity issue. We are looking at kind of how do we better balance and how do we better allocate. But I will tell you that every staff member at the health department has a role in this response in some way, shape, or form. They've been asked to do something that they never ever thought they would be asked to do, and they've done it and exceeded every expectation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any further questions?
I have a couple, and maybe you know this, maybe you don't, but of the eligible people so far, I guess which are the first responders, what percentage do you think are actually taking the vaccine?
I don't have that. I don't have that specific number. I will tell you one of the things, and this is completely anecdotal. One of the things that we have seen, though, is that when we originally kind of pushed out vaccine and notification and began this planning process, folks were kind of on the fence. Over the course of the last 2 weeks, we've also had a lot of folks that maybe turned it down the first time that have come back to the table and now received that vaccine. So we'll keep going back to our 1As every single time. They will always get our first priority, but we're seeing that number go up. I think it's changing day by day at this point, but I don't have the specific percentage in front of me.
And the second question, if I'm, say, 72 years old, and I think you answered this, but I want to make sure, because a lot of people are curious about that. I probably will begin that, I should expect it somewhere around February the 1st. I will start to be eligible for a vaccine.
I think February 1st is a good date. Now, February 1st is also my target date for all of my school personnel. So we're going to pull kind of the school piece from the health department. We're partnering with Clark Regional for that kind of 70 and up. And what you actually saw last night was that CDC changed that guidance to 65 and up. So that's also going to change our numbers again and change our response. One of the things that I will say is that here in Clark County, our estimates are about 6,600 doses will be needed for that 65 and over population. That's not going to be something I'm going to be able to, A, secure vaccine for overnight, or B, push out. And so it will be a rolling vaccination clinic. I think beginning February 1st is a nice timeline, as long as we can get vaccine.
I have one final question, and then I have a comment. And this is for me, really. Do we think this vaccine is going to be necessary every year, or will we need to take a booster every 7 years, like a tetanus shot, or what do we think about that?
So the reality of the situation is we don't know. We are continuing to study and research that. At this point, the general feeling does seem to be that this may be more of an annual vaccine, similar to the way in which the flu is an annual. You all have heard in the news media the conversation about the the virus changing and altering. And so that's much like a flu, where we tailor the vaccine to the specific flu strand each year. We try to, right? That is the general consensus right now, is that COVID will follow that same pattern, but we just simply don't know that to be fact yet.
And my comment would be, I had COVID, and I dealt with your health department, and it did an outstanding job. And I'd like to at least say thank you to Allie and to
Yeah.
Sheila.
Thank you.
The two people that were my contact, and they did an outstanding job. Every day they called me, and they called me with care and good passion.
And what I will say, I appreciate that, and I will share that with both of them, because one of the things that we have had to change a little bit, we reported, I think we've now confirmed 1,844 cases. 312 of those are active. Those 312 active cases are people that up until this point, we've truly tried to have a daily conversation with them. But I think it goes back to Magistrate Blanton's question about capacity. We've had to pull back on that a little bit. However, what I will tell you is that everyone has, and we joke slightly, but not really, I think everybody has my cell phone number in the county. We invite that. We want you, if you need something, if you have a question. Some folks really struggle, and they need that additional support, and that's truly what we're here for. And so I will say, for all my staff, that has been very important to them, and that compassion is very genuine.
It shows.
Thank you.
I have nothing further.
Thank you.
Thank you, you guys are both on the show. Good night.
Thank you.
I commend you on that. Anything this body can do to help.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Any other comments or questions? Thank you, Becky.
Thank you.
I will make one addition that's not necessarily COVID related.
Yes.
Becky and I spoke on Monday, speaking with Senator Alvarado over the weekend regarding Senate Bill 1, which is set to alter some of the ability to make orders and unilateral decisions on behalf of the governor. It's going to change some of the guidelines, give another option to follow, I think, the federal CDC guidelines, and Becky's going to work on making sure we have all those alternatives so that we can follow the least restrictive and keep business open.
And my staff is working right now to kind of pull together that chart that sort of delineates the difference between the guidance that was issued on the state level as well as what that looks like at the federal level, and identifying those differences.
Thank you, Becky.
Thank you.
Review of the treasurer's report. Any questions for Alicia? Seeing none, I'll move on to item number 10, consider approval of the transfers. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Good. I don't have the transfer for my packet.
Alicia?
I was asking Dave.
Okay.
Thank you very much. One question I would have, and I think it's probably not the right part of this meeting, the conversation. No question.
Okay. Was there a motion
Yes.
Yes.
and a second? Okay.
Yes.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor respond by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? That motion carries. Transfer is approved. Item number 11, consider approval of the bills list. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? This wasn't on the bills list, but I do have a question.
Okay.
Can you update us, well, I'd just like to get an update on our boiler situation and our temporary boiler. I know those will show up in bills, but at some point in time, could we get an update on that? Because I think we kind of left it open-ended as to what it was going to cost
Sure.
and this, that, and the other.
Okay. I guess briefly, I don't think that we have been billed for that yet. My hope is to keep the cost considerably lower than the $150,000 that we initially approved. I believe the rental on the boiler outside is in the ballpark of $10,000 to $15,000 a month. The quote that we ended up taking was for the work to be done in hopefully 1 month, not 2 months, and I think I think we're going to be able to keep it around $100,000 or less. But like I told one of the other magistrates who asked me about it yesterday, when it comes to a construction project, I'm never going to swear to it under oath. But that's my hope.
But we think that the whole project, the rental, the new boiler and everything will be in the neighborhood of 100?
That's my current thought,
Okay.
yes.
Just wanted to kind of get an update. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor respond by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? That motion carries. Item number 12, presentation regarding body cameras by Sheriff Burl Perdue and Chief Kevin Palmer.
Care if I take my mask off?
Go ahead. Please do.
Thank each and every one of you all this morning for giving the chief and I the opportunity to make a presentation to you and honestly ask for some funds. You know, we're in a very unique and positive situation right now. Chief Palmer and I have been in discussion since October. He first approached me and it's a great idea about furnishing body cameras for our sheriff's office, our deputies, full-time deputies that are on patrol full-time. It's a very unique opportunity because it's something that I've wanted to do for several years, and this subject first came up nationwide. But it's all a matter of cost. The cameras are a one-time expense, but where your chief financial obligation is in storage, redaction, retrieval, all the software for that, having a dedicated body person to do that. The chief, how many years now? 3 years. They have had body cameras for 3 years, and it's worked out very, very well for them. And I think it'll work out very, very well for us, along with working with the city police department. We have, like I said, it was mostly it is a financial reason that we haven't already went to it. It's roughly $20,000-$30,000 a year. The chief can speak on that just for the, as I said, the storage retrieval and all that's involved there. He has graciously, and the city has graciously offered to let us, for lack of a better word, piggyback with them
we would buy the cameras, and then they would take care of all the rest of it, which is a major expense annually. As I said, this is a one-time expense for us, the county, the sheriff's office. Roughly, cameras are about $16,000 for 13 full-time deputies. The chief can speak on the rest of it, the costs there. Everything that he is recommending, which would be some extra software and things that would go in cruisers, where if you turn the lights on a cruiser, automatically turns the body cameras on. So just the long and short of the story is about $23,000 would be the cost for us to do everything. I have cut my budget as far as I can cut it, and trying to come up with the money to offset these expenses from the court. Right now, roughly, if nothing else comes in, and we've talked to all of our vendors supposedly, and you know how vendors are. All of our bills are in from 2020, and we should have roughly $16,000 in excess fees that we would send to the fiscal court to pay for this. So that would leave, again, roughly $7,000 to $8,000 that would be needed to totally implement this program. As I said, it's very, very gracious of the city, the mayor, the council, and Chief Palmer to offer to do this for us. And I don't know how much I appreciate this. I've talked to the county attorney on a couple occasions about the body cameras. And, you know, honestly, it will make his job easier when we're prosecuting cases. It makes my job easier if someone makes a complaint, because, you know, probably 99.whatever% of the time, our people are very professional and do a great job, and it shows that. And we've had a couple of instances in the county where the chief's officers have backed us up on some kind of volatile situations, and one place in particular about 3 times, and they always complain about how unprofessional my deputies were, his officers were. But where his officers were there with body cameras, it shows that we were not. We were very professional, and they see that they weren't. So it works both ways. It keeps an eye, another set of eyes, so to speak, on any situations that we may have. And, you know, if I don't care if it's less than 1%, if we have 1% or less that something wasn't handled right, we want to know, we want to have the proof, we want to own it, and we want to fix it. And that's what we do, always. But this makes it much easier for all of us, prosecutors, the deputies, police department. And, you know, we back the city up on calls practically every day. And the city backs us up on calls practically every day. We work together, we intertwine daily, not just occasionally. It's a daily thing. And it would be very, very good for both agencies if we can get this passed and get this done. If you have any questions for me, I'll be glad to answer them. Chief Palmer can speak to the fiscal impact, and I stand for questions.
Who would be better to ask questions about the difference between the gunshot and the blue light? And that'd be better for him or you?
It would be better for him,
Okay.
because he deals with this, you know, daily. Well, maybe not daily, but, you know, he's the one that has the access to all these things, and he's done the research and everything before they implemented this 3 years ago.
Okay.
Chief?
The sheriff nailed it on the need, but if the fiscal court has any questions about the functionalities or the dollars or the price tags, the gunshot detector and the blue light detector, those are options that the fiscal court may not choose to fund. Obviously, the sheriff's department would be better with the body camera, you know, working, and it would rely on the officer turning it on and off. The benefit of the blue light detector is exactly what it is. There's a module that's installed in the car, so when he activates those blue lights, that camera comes on. Now,
Can't shut it off.
he can shut it off. He can, yes. The camera automatically comes on. Now, this activates an option that the sheriff's office will have with their camera regardless, and that's what's called the 30-second pre-story. In other words, I see Daniel run a stop sign, okay, and I turn on my blue lights. There's a good chance that if my camera was at an angle above the steering wheel, and some officers are taller than others, that it may have saw the violation, because it will go back 30 seconds before the officer pushed those blue lights.
So it's recording even when it's not
Yes.
activated?
Yes.
Okay.
And it perpetually will move forward 30 seconds, okay? So if you think about the lost evidence, or maybe a statement that might have been made, you know, let's say I go into Speedway to get me some coffee. Well, I don't have my body camera turned on. I'm not encountering anybody. I'm not arresting anyone. I'm not writing but this person comes up and just tells me something. Oh, well, now it's time to turn on my body camera. It's going to go back 30 seconds, and it's going to capture what was just said. So the blue light mechanism, even though it's an additional, helps the officer not to forget when he does a traffic stop, because most of our interactions are going to involve those blue lights. You know, either drive an emergency to the scene, we ran our blue lights, of course it's running, or we see a traffic violation or an impaired driver and we get out with them, it's going to go back 30 seconds. So it's a huge benefit. It is an extra cost. The camera will work without it. A second thing in making the systems with the same as the city is we won't have one agency running on these capabilities and the others not. It's just a whole lot easier to manage. You know, we wouldn't want the sheriff saying, oh, well, our cameras don't do that. Okay. The fiscal court is already familiar with this type of procedure. The deputies run a mobile data computer in their car, where the purchase of the box, the computer, was the county, but the hundreds of thousands of dollars of infrastructure and servers is over here. And the benefit to that. So and of course we do a lot of things, you know, a lot of the PSAP money comes through the court. This is something that the court's very familiar with in city and county, you know, pulling resources, and some of it's housed here, some of it's housed there. The gunshot detector is exactly what it is. A gun report is north of 150 decibels, so obviously any loud noise would do it. If I were to knock this podium over, it'd probably activate my body camera. Okay, but that's okay, because we'd rather it be running and not need it than not running and we did need it.
So is that something in addition to, I was just thinking if there was a gunshot, the odds are the lights are already on and it's already activated.
Here's how that happens. Same story, Judge, I go in to get my cup of coffee and someone's got a bone to pick with law enforcement. And this happens across the country, where officers are sitting on the side of the road doing a report, writing a report for a theft of sunglasses, and someone that may be targeting law enforcement unbeknownst to the officer, and there's a gunshot. It may not be the officer's gunshot, so we need to think about that, you know, to protect the officer, as well as obviously when the officer has to use deadly force, it's going to come on, and deadly force encounters happen in seconds, you know, to where it may not always do I run my blue lights. So that means it could be a domestic dispute where I go to where a husband and wife are fighting, you know, maybe I don't get my camera off quick enough. Sometimes the drama comes to the cruiser, okay? It wasn't an emergency run. I didn't have my blue lights on. Well, now here I am with this, whatever this situation was, is now playing out right there in front of me. Gunshots occur. It's just another option that helps the officer a better chance of capturing the event on video. As far as body cameras, you have to have lived under a rock over the past year not to see the value of a police department and a sheriff's department to have them. But this, I could sum it up in this. In a police investigation, it's easier to prove what happened than to prove what didn't happen. And a lot of times that's where police, cities and counties find themselves in litigation in spending all their resources to prove what didn't happen. What we allege, this did not occur. That's difficult because there's a lot of times there's no evidence of what didn't happen. A lot of times, most of the time, there are evidence of what did happen. So those are the bells and whistles of that. The in-kind infrastructure, and I just kind of spoke, used language like this was, you know, we're sharing costs. I have a staff member that is their entire job is to take care of the body cameras. So that's going to be a plus to the sheriff's office, and someone's not having to categorize these. If Mr. Davis's law firm needed a copy of a video, we don't have to make discs anymore. He gets a link on his computer from evidence.com, and for a certain amount of time he can view that. We can shoot it to the prosecutors, we can shoot it to the Commonwealth Attorney's Office, to insurance companies, you know. It's just, and this is that employee's main job, is to just handle those. When we do release videos, it's not a matter of just sending them a copy, because if there are juveniles in there, the faces have to be blurred out. There's license plates, they have to be blurred out. If the officer is standing there looking at your driver's license, obviously that camera is seeing that driver's license. We don't want to release that information out in a video that might compromise someone's identity. So these are steps that have to be, that the sheriff's office won't have to worry about that at all.
So, trying to nail down the total cost, the math that I had from the letter was, I think, about 20,700. I think Sheriff Perdue said about 23,000. What number are we looking at if we approve all of it?
This memo was written in October, so again, we're going to have to reach out to Axon, and by the way, Axon is Taser.
Okay.
Okay, it's the same company. Top of the line, Cadillac. There's not a better platform for body-worn cameras out there that do all the things that we do. The number in October was $700 per camera, and the sheriff needs.
About 16,000.
Okay, $16,000. He says the.
I think the last quote you had.
How many deputies?
13, I think, and it's like 15,000.
So 13 times would be 26. So it's 2 cameras each deputy, and I think we've explained that need. So it's 26 times 700. 18.2.
Okay, and then plus the extra 5,200, right?
5,200 for the 2 officers.
So that'd be 23,500.
Sure.
And that includes the gunshot and the light activation.
Okay, and another question that I have, a couple. Is that something where the smart thing to do would be for us to write a check to that company, or should we have the sheriff write a check and give the money to the sheriff, or?
No, we need to be very clear about this.
Okay.
And I've told the commission this as well. It needs to be done through our contract and our license. If not, Axon is going to ask the sheriff to have his own license, his own evidence.com, and we've defeated the purpose here. Just like with the MDTs, the sheriff pays no money to CIS in Chicago that runs our data over here. And this is what we're trying to avoid, and it's not undone. That we're hosting it. It's he's paying for the hardware, but we're paying for the licenses and the software and the infrastructure. That's what the $30,000 is. So if the fiscal court and the sheriff's office move forward with this, I just need to notify the city commission that we're going, and we'll place the order with Axon, and the county will reimburse the city.
Okay, so basically, what we could do hypothetically is, once we get the excess fees, we could just write a check right back to the sheriff. He could reimburse you, and that takes care of it, right?
That's correct, and I would say we would all want to get the 2021 prices, because this quote was made in October, and not saying that they're going to go out the roof on us, but it's a good chance it won't be to the dime.
Okay, well, with that in mind, I'm going to make a motion that the court provide $23,500 to the sheriff's office to reimburse the city of Winchester for this purchase.
Judge, you also had that memorandum of understanding that you forwarded to me with a lot of top quality where is it's and what has it's. That would definitely be something I would want to take back to the city.
Okay.
That looked perfect. and spelling it out once we have the final numbers.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Okay, motion has been made and seconded. I think we also need to choose what fund we're gonna pay it from too. Is that, I guess we're paying it from the general fund or?
Excess fees in general fund, because the excess fees generally go to the general fund, don't
Yeah.
they?
It just come from the general fund, and then the question is, Alicia, do you know where we can, what line item we can take that from? I was looking at the contingency while they were speaking, and I don't think we have quite enough in contingency for it.
We do not have enough contingent.
Judge, what about, if I may, I don't think this was brought up briefly the last time we had a discussion, but I see honestly, I see a community-wide benefit from it. I mean, obviously, the officers and the departments benefit from it. I think the legal system benefits from it, both criminally and civil. The water civil suit file. And I think public at large benefits from it. So in light of that, Judge, I think so long as we have available interest, income available to us in the community fund, I'd recommend, and I guess offer as a friendly amendment, it'd be paid out of the community fund. I think clearly everybody in Clark County, either indirectly or in some cases directly, would benefit by having this. I can't think of a more worthwhile purpose for those monies, and I think it's solves potentially the budget line item issue we've got there. Treasurer just referenced, so that would be my recommendation, I guess my motion.
Well, I mean, certainly, I guess the question that we keep coming back to with the community fund is what can we spend it on? And I know Robert continues to raise the charitable organization question. And frankly, I don't know the answer to that. And I've forwarded some stuff to the county attorney, but I've read the same things he's read, and it's about as clear as mud to me. So I don't know if we know whether we can. Do you have an opinion on that?
Judge, I guess I'd restate just for this record that desed on the materials that I've seen, it would seem a question that would be very difficult to resolve, even taking into account descriptions or additional understandings offered by Ms. Haley Cunningham. It would still be difficult for me to say for certain, but I can't imagine a community coming forward and disagreeing with the purchase of this equipment for the sake of the benefits it provides the community and the benefits that it would provide for safety, officer safety. I think the community probably joins this court, it sounds like, and the belief that those things are so necessary that any money available to purchase them would be appropriate. And it would seem that this would fit within that very broad category of use of those funds.
Okay, I do have one question. Let's say, for some hypothetical reason, someone out in the world had a problem with us using community fund for body cameras, and we would still be on the hook through the general fund at the end of the day, correct? Or do we need to make a contingency in the order? That's all I'm asking.
I don't think you have to make a contingency in the order. You could always revise that at some later date, but the obligations here are contractual between the fiscal court and the grantor, and I don't think individuals, while their opinions should be respected, I don't think they'd have standing to object as to what your contractual obligations were.
Okay. All right.
This is clearly a function of government. Government ought to pay for it, so.
The body cameras do belong to the public.
That's
They're
exactly.
subject to open records.
So I think the general fund and excess fees is the appropriate place for it.
Magistrate Elkins.
Question for Chief Palmer and the sheriff. I'm sure that there are many occasions where different agencies share a lot. You may or may not know of that. I'm guessing that there are. Are there any issues, potential issues, or any reason you can see why we shouldn't share a lot?
No, and I think we're staying genuine that the license, the software is in my building. Now, and I'll give you, for instance, we have over 50 body cameras. Not all of those were bought out of the same accounts. you know, some of them were even bought on a safety grant back when the Kentucky League of Cities was given those types of programs. So the actual purchase of the camera has never been any item of contention as long as we're doing what we said. Now, the sheriff was running his own platform here at his building, and he was running his own licenses and this, that, and the other. I'm sure Axon would take exception to that and want to know, you know, when we're getting paid, you know, that kind of thing. But we're staying genuine. We're having several public meetings where we're saying exactly what we're doing with them. But I can just tell you, if it's hosted in a different location, they tell us how many people can have these licenses to have these administrative privileges. It's not unlike any system. I'm sure the clerk's office has, you know, proprietary software that's in her office, and she's not authorized to run that anywhere but in her office on those terminals. That's just how software companies work. So I have no problem with it, no problem.
Okay, I just want to make sure there's no issues with sharing that, we wouldn't get
No
in
sneaking.
trouble somewhere.
No sneaking.
Yeah, perfect, and a couple of things, I do think that these cameras will provide a extra degree of transparency. They provide protection for the citizens of Clark County, and not more importantly, but very importantly, the deputies and the Winchester Police Department as well. I don't think it matters if you pay for it out of what fund you pay for it out of. I think they're absolutely necessary. If anybody's on the fence about it, Chief Palmer comment, it's easier to prove what did happen than it is to prove what didn't happen. These cameras will help to prove what didn't happen, because we're in a position we need to. So if you're on the fence, think about that. I support this motion, and I support the amendment.
Just a question I have about the timeline. We make a commitment today to make the purchase. When do you think the city, or I guess to make the reimbursement, when do you think the city takes action?
As soon as I walk across Maple Street,
Okay.
Fiscal will call Axon and order 26.
And when do you need the check from the sheriff by?
Judge, and I can't speak for our treasurer, she's been in and out of the office, but now, we do business with Axon frequently. This is not going to be a blip on the radar for anyone, and I mean, if the county, I'm assuming this, but we can double check this, that we can invoice the county. I mean, your part is.
Okay,
No hurry on a check.
Gotcha. Okay, that's what I wanted to hear.
Just need a nod.
All right then.
Chief,
Go ahead.
I have one question for the chief. Are these cameras also used, since you've got them installed already at the PD, do you also use them as training in different situations if you
We do,
review something?
But in order to stay with your chain of custody, you have to be real careful on what you use them with. You know, there can't be, for lack of a better word, joking and smoking, you know, and that kind of thing, because it's going to be uploaded to the evidence.com. When the deputy puts it in the charger, it takes that data and puts it up. He doesn't choose whether to download or not. So anything that's on that. But we do have in our policy, and I'm assuming that the sheriff will adopt his own internal policies on the use of the body cameras. We can use those for training. There's a body camera running at WMU right now. They're doing a workplace violence seminar up there. And instead of setting up a tripod and filming the training, the instructor just turns his body camera on and lets everybody in the room know, hey, this thing's running and we're going to use this for training purposes, you know, afterwards. So yes, there are other, besides, you know, OJT, you know, training that we use them for. Sometimes they're used for confessions. Instead of bringing in a suspect or an offender into the interview room where we have video, you know, recordings, sometimes you have to improvise. And this is going to be the interview that we're going to do with the person or the witness. It's not just about the emergency calls. In fact, a lot of times you'll get benefit out of the camera in a non-emergency situation, you know, as well.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, so go ahead, Travis.
Just a couple comments. I wear one of these devices 40, sometimes more hours a week, and it is top 3 on my belt. It is used more than Angel on my belt. Aside from my firearm and my radio, it's top 3. And this is a home run for the county, and I think we should support it. My personal opinion is that it should come from the general fund, not the community fund, but I'm not going to let that keep me from supporting it if the majority of the court does that.
Well, my suggestion, based on Chief Palmer's comments, are we keep the motion as stated, $23,500 as a commitment. He's going to present us later on with an invoice, which we will then have on a bills list that will designate the fund that it comes from. Hopefully, in the meantime, we'll be able to get some better paperwork and figure out exactly whether there's any problem at all with us using the community fund. So we'll just make the commitment today.
I would imagine a $23,000 purchase from the city that is not in the budget will spur a budget amendment. But given the commission already knows this is coming and how we're going to do it, and they understand the importance of body cameras, it'll just be a jump through the hoop exercise.
Okay, so motion has been made and seconded. Any further discussion?
Should you consider increasing that 23,500 number just in case the cost of the cameras have gone up $25 this year?
That's up to these guys.
25.
Do you think that's a problem?
Let's just make it up to 25,000.
I'll accept that as a friendly amendment. Let it reflect up to 25,000. Please don't invoice us 25 if you don't need to.
And then at a later meeting, we'll have an order and y'all can research
Right.
on where the funds are gonna come from. I'm good with that.
So we're not approving an order today?
We're approving the purchase. We're not approving the fund. The fund will be,
Okay.
when they give us a invoice, it'll be on the bills list just like any other purchase. All right, any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor respond by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? That motion carries.
I want to
Chief.
thank you, Chief, for the offer and the willingness to work with the county. Very much appreciated.
Thank you.
Can I add one thing, please?
Sure. Chief, can you hold on 1 second for me? Go ahead.
I was just going to answer Magistrate Davis's question earlier about if an officer deputy could turn the camera off after it's been activated. If that happens, there's better be a very, very good reason. Very good reason.
I was wondering that as well.
Yes.
Chief, would you be available? And I noticed you're headed out the door, so if not today, maybe at a later date for a check presentation? Okay. Do you need to go right now? Okay. Sure, that'd be great. All right. Moving on. That also took care of item number 13, I suppose. Item number 14, consider approval of the second reading of an ordinance to enact and adopt the Clark County Code of Ordinances. Do I have a motion? Is there a second? Any discussion?
I have a question or two.
Sure.
Has anyone read this document word for word, front to back? Because I picked up a copy Monday. I tried to take a copy with me at the previous meeting and was told to leave it here. But as I get through the very first couple of sections, I find numerous mistakes. One section refers to commissioners, said we need 2 commissioners to do this. Another section says we meet on the second and fourth Wednesdays. Another section says 7 magisterial districts. What I would propose we do is we take one of these documents apart, have the appropriate section forwarded to the appropriate agency for their review to make sure that it's correct. I mean, either we didn't amend what we needed to amend, or the publisher didn't find all the documents he needed to make the appropriate edits. It's probably riddled with, because I just went through the first 2 sections word for word, and I found I don't know how many mistakes. And I hate to approve a document that isn't correct. And I would propose that we perhaps take the animal control to Addie, we take the zoning ordinance to Rob, roads to the road department, let them go through each section, make sure that they're accurate, current, and update.
If I'm not mistaken, Magistrate Blanton, these are the documents that were from the ordinances from the records over at the county clerk's office.
Well,
So if there's spelling errors or anything, they're the same
Well,
spelling
no, I mean,
errors.
they're not, I mean, they're technical errors. I mean, because it clearly says, in one section says we need 2 magistrates, 2 commissioners to do something. Another section says there's 7 magisterial districts. The other says we meet the second and fourth Wednesday. I mean, there's something wrong somewhere, and I didn't have a chance to go through it or ask the clerk, because something's wrong somewhere, and I'm not going to vote to publish a document that's full of errors. And we need to find out what happened. Either we need to come back and do some amendments judiciously, or they failed to find the right documents. I don't know what it is, but there's, just in the first two sections, there's numerous errors.
County Attorney Elkins, here's a question that I have based on both of the magistrate's comments. My assumption is going to be that this is more so of a recording agency. They probably did take verbatim from whatever they found, but there may very well be inaccuracies based on old documentation that was recorded years ago in the clerk's office, perhaps before any of us were ever there. I mean, when they mentioned 7 magistrates, I know that at one point in time, I believe we had 7 magistrates, but that was a long time ago. So is that something that we need to correct before we can approve the document? Is that something we should approve the document and correct later? What's your opinion on that?
Judge, my recommendation would be that you not adopt the ordinance today, but set a date certain for the second reading. In the meantime, it sounds like, based on the volume of discussion that the court may need to have, that you have some workshop or work session in the meantime to get all those things fleshed out, as opposed to doing amendments later. It could be that our adopting ordinance could cure all those things.
Okay.
Well, the ordinance says this is what's effective, and all other ordinances are null and void. So once we approve this, I mean, we have to live with it the way I'm reading it. And I'm not an attorney and don't profess to be one, but if I'm reading what's written here, it says once we approve this document is in the law, regardless of what else is out there.
That's exactly right. So that would.
So I hate to approve something that's not right.
That leads to my recommendation that you set a date certain for your second reading, perhaps your first meeting in February, and entertain some workshop or exchange of communications to correct the document. At the point that it's adopted by ordinance, that is then the law in Clark County, and it will be correct.
And I would further suggest that each magistrate pick up a copy and start reading it, because my eyes aren't the best and I don't catch everything. But if we've got 7 different people reading it, I would hope that we would at least have a good starting point to make corrections and further have these documents sent to the appropriate governing body within our county government for their review and approval.
Sure.
Because this was a grant, I have a final report that's due by January 31st, and it's finishing on this. I have to submit it to the state. The project has to be finished by the 31st of January. Now, I'm just telling you that because I've got it on my desk and I gotta get it done. And that's what I've been waiting on, the second reading.
So could we continue the second reading until the next meeting without having to advertise again? Just encourage everyone to make the corrections that they need. The next meeting's going to be before the end of January.
Well, we have to advertise again.
Well, I don't think we do. Not if we continue it.
As long as you set the date today for the second reading.
So I will offer up a motion that we postpone the second reading of this ordinance to our 28th meeting at 6:30 PM
Okay.
on that agenda.
That's a motion. Is there a second? Second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor respond by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? That motion carries. I'm going to take a brief pause here. What time is the Attorney General coming?
10:45.
Would it be appropriate for us to recess and come back later, or is that something we shouldn't consider?
I think the delay would be longer than you expect, perhaps.
Okay. All right, fair enough. Moving on to item number 15, consider approval of an order approving the purchase of a 2010 Freightliner business class dump truck. Do I have a motion? Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Sure.
What are we buying here?
This is mine. Well, actually, I'll let somebody on the road committee. Magistrate Davis.
This would be, as the order reflects, 2010 Freightliner dump truck. We budgeted, I think, Judge, if I stand corrected, somewhere around 72 or maybe even as much as 75,000 in the line item. It's been anticipated, the road committee talked about it for some time. As far as the dump truck situation, this is considerably larger than anything else the department has. There's a 2002 International. It's had 2 broken axles, Judge, in the last 18 months. We do have 1 dump truck that hauls, I think, somewhere between 8 and 10 tons. This truck is considerably larger. It would haul as much as twice that amount or greater, which would, the thought is add to some efficiency and some, cut down on the frequency of hauling trips. If you had at least 1 truck that could handle this much, it's something we discussed for some time. Road Supervisor Curtis had been looking, and we approved, I think, one earlier, Judge, I think maybe a month or 2 ago. If I stand corrected, I think that got sold out from under us before we could pay for it. So this one came available up in Wilder, which I think is northern Kentucky, maybe Boone County. He and maybe one of the other guys went up there, looked at it, drove it, inspected it. Pretty confident that it was a good deal for the county, given that it's only about 10 years old, and new, of course, would be a few times that amount, so it's within our budget.
Am I right, Magistrate Davis, that the general idea is to use this dump truck in order to transport rock from the Allen Company rather than paying them to transport it?
One of the benefits is cut down on that hauling expense.
Was it a tandem back? Is it a tandem back?
I believe so.
I believe it is, yeah.
How many people do we have that can drive it to the employee was?
I assume there's at least some that can. I mean, I'm not.
I think we have 2.
All the questions I have.
I just have reservations about buying a 10-year-old vehicle. I know typically we get rid of vehicles when they get age to them, but 2010 seems, and I don't know about the price, but I know just in pure age, I know that's quite old for a piece of equipment for the county to go out and buy. So I'm concerned about that.
I believe a new purchase of a truck like this would be in the hundreds of thousands, but some of the magistrates have more experience with large diesel trucks than I do, but I don't necessarily think that a 2010 of this particular model, I think it's a pretty good deal from what I've seen.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say you'd be looking at more than 200,000 trucks like this, or in that range.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor respond by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Nay.
That motion carries. Item number 16, consider approval of an order of a joint appointment of Chris Benavides to the Winchester Clark County Recreational Tourist and Convention Commission.
Motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Judge,
Sure.
I really don't know what we're approving. This order is full of blanks. I don't know who he's replacing or what the term is. Have reservations about approving a blank order with so many blank spaces to be filled in. Is he replacing someone, and who would that be, and what would the normal term be?
I think I can get you that information if you hold on a second.
And is this individual a male or female?
Male.
Well, it says her successor, so I'm not sure about that as well then, so. Again, I have a tendency to read what's before me, and I hate to ask these questions, but I would like them answered before I vote.
One of them is replacing Stephanie Sultan. One of them is a reappointment of Kitty Strode. And I'd have to check my email to tell you specifically who the other one. I can see if Nancy Turner wants to respond, or I suppose if you want to, you can make a motion to table or postpone, and we can handle it at the next meeting.
It really doesn't matter to me, Judge. I have great reservations about voting on something with a blank check on it, so It's up to the court. You have a motion and a second. I'll do what I feel is appropriate, but the majority is always will rule.
Okay. Any further discussion?
Are we tabling this till Magistrate Lane gets an answer, questions answered?
Well, I'm not going to make a motion to table. Probably wouldn't pass anyway.
Okay.
You want to amend the motion, just you'll fill in the term? I mean, that's what the blank is what the term is and when it expires.
I'll accept that as a friendly amendment. I believe it's a 3-year term, but I don't have that in front of me. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor respond by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Nay.
That motion carries. Item number 17, consider approval of an order of a joint appointment of Cameron Cordell to the Winchester-Clark County Recreational Tourist and Convention Commission. Do I have a motion? Is there a second?
I'll make that second that you'll fill in the term and expiration date.
We will do that.
I think, Judge, as a side note, name probably is spelled C-A-M-E-R-O.
Yeah, does that say, does that have two O's in it? Yeah, that'll be corrected. Cameron. And I'll accept that friendly amendment. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor respond by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? That motion carries. Item number 18, consider approval of an order reappointing Kitty Strode to the Winchester-Clark County Recreational Tourist and Convention Commission, Hotel Motel Association. Do I have a motion?
A motion approved that you'll fill in the expired term and all that good stuff.
Okay, I'll accept that as a friendly amendment. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor respond by saying aye. Aye.
Who was my second one there?
Was that Magistrate Davis?
I don't think
I
you
think-
made it.
Oh, is there a second?
Did you make the second, Magistrate Davis? Oh, you did
No.
the second?
Okay, well, we need a second.
I'll second it.
All right. All those in favor respond by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Nay.
That motion carries.
Nay on all of them.
Oh, okay.
Item number 19, consider approval of an order of a joint reappointment of George Karuba to the Administrative Hearing Board.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second with the same friendly amendment.
I'll accept that. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor respond by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
That motion carries. Item number 20, consider approval of the first reading of an ordinance to change the zoning classification of attractive land located at 601 Flanagan Station Road from agricultural A1 to highway business B3.
Motion approved. Second.
Who was the first one? Okay.
Magistrate
Thompson.
Thompson and Constable.
Okay, thank you.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor respond by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? That motion carries. Item number 21, a discussion concerning employment transfers within county government. This reflects back to the issue from our last regular meeting regarding Cheryl Wills, who is here in the audience. And I think in broader terms, regarding any potential transfer within county government that is under the auspice of our administrative code. Robert raised a question concerning whether or not Ms. Wills should be qualified for the time of service increase in her pay. I believe if we read the compensation plan, everyone gets 1%, and then according to how your years of service are determined, you may get an additional 1% or an additional 2% in 1% increments. Those of you who were here when the compensation plan was originally written probably know that very well. So the question that I think we have to consider today, it can either be construed narrowly, strictly to the terms of Ms. Wills, or it can be construed broadly, and I think it probably will be construed broadly to affect any potential transfer within county government. So what we need to decide, I spoke with the counsel at CAECO who wrote the draft administrative code. He said the same thing that the county attorney said, which is, that's beyond the scope of the administrative code. It is silent on it, and you can probably make a fiscal court decision one way or the other. I'm sure Robert disagrees with that, but that's what we've been advised by council. So what we need to decide is whether we want county government employees to be able to transfer to the fiscal court or from the fiscal court back and forth, and keep their years of service. If not, we need to decide so, and basically if anyone from the sheriff department, the jail, clerk's office transfers to, for some reason, the fire department, or let's say somebody from the jail or the sheriff department goes to work for Tony Kirk at home incarceration, they start over at day one, and it's as if they have no experience. That's what we've got to decide. I will say factually, if you wanted to try to make it specifically for Ms. Wills, she did work in the county judge's office, which is quite clearly the fiscal court, for 12 years. I will also say that her employment has been continuous from the county judge's office to the clerk's office, back to the county judge's office for, I think, approximately, 18 years, Cheryl? But, we have to decide how to interpret that.
I'll make a few comments.
Sure.
Number one, certainly we can't control who the other agencies hire and fire. Secondly, if I'm understanding you correctly, then if someone in the county, under the purview of the county fiscal court, is dismissed and they go to work for another agency within county government, that wouldn't be a dismissal and a rehire, that would be a transfer, if I'm understanding what you want to do.
No, I believe a dismissal may be a different set of facts. I mean, a dismissal is a discontinuation of employment.
Well, I think, and again, I wasn't present, but as I recall, when Judge Branham started his last term, I think some staff was dismissed and then take other positions in county government. So, again,
I don't know anything about that.
Again, I don't either. I could do some research to find out. I mean, this wasn't added on to our agenda, and I did not receive this packet until 5 o'clock on Monday, so it kind of limits the amount of research and due diligence you can do when you receive these things.
Robert, do you have a computer?
Yes, sir.
Does it have an internet connection?
This was not on the draft agenda, Judge.
Okay,
It was not on the draft agenda.
if you say so.
I say so.
Cheryl, you had a comment?
Yeah, what magistrate Blank was referring to when,
Won't you come to the podium?
Respectfully, I submit that what you were referring to when I moved from Judge Branham's office to the clerk's office, there was no separation or, I can't think of the word I want. My service to the county was continuous.
Okay.
The last day here, the next working day, I did take 2 weeks vacation approved by Judge Branham, and then I started the first day with Michelle as the county clerk. So there was no discontinuance of my service. And furthermore, there had been transfers through the years from different departments to other departments. And if we're all under the same umbrella for responsibilities and for insurance coverage, I submit that that makes me also a fiscal court employee, so it's just a lateral transfer.
Yeah.
And thank you for the opportunity.
And I,
Cheryl, real quick question.
Yes, sir.
It's a different issue, but it's principle. It sort of relates to what we're talking about here.
Yes, sir.
With respect to your state retirement, county employee retirement.
Yes, sir.
You haven't, because of any of those changes in job positions, you haven't suffered any kind of a penalty or been penalized in any way on your retirement?
No, sir.
system.
No, sir.
It's been treated as you've been continually employed in the county retirement for purposes of your pension. I know
Yes, sir.
that's apples and oranges here.
Yes, sir.
It's all.
Got
And-
one question, Cheryl, if I may. How many years of service do you put in for Clark County?
Right at 18.
it was 1999, Judge Branham.
At some point, you were going through.
Yes, sir.
Okay. If we have any legal questions for Mr. Elkins, ask now or forever hold your peace. we're going to have an assistant county attorney come in a moment. Okay.
It's in the hallway. It's not gonna take him long.
Okay. So anyway, back to the original point. It is unclear from our administrative code whether which refers to county employee in several areas, and I will note that the order that we hired Ms. Wills under says county employee. Now, I would say if you walked up to anyone on the street and you asked them, is someone who works for the clerk's office a county employee, they'd probably say yes. And if you ask them, somebody who works for the fire department, a county employee, they'd probably say yes. So you get into a lot of interesting legal arguments, I suppose, as to what is a reasonable expectation of an employee regarding their employment. And so that's really what we've got to figure out and flesh out here.
Yeah, and I think in the previous administration is that the way that they kept records on employment dates, like if you had a firefighter that was a voluntary firefighter, they weren't a full-time employee, I'm pretty sure that their effective date as when they started and they got hired on a later date was when they originally started as a voluntary firefighter. You know, I remember having those conversations with Judge Branham and the previous staff. So, I mean, to me, if you're not terminated or quit and gone for an experience, a period of time, then I think you should be able to carry it over. You know, we're not carrying over benefits or anything like this because each department pays that. The only thing we're carrying over is their time served as for their yearly increases. That's my opinion.
Well, their benefits are handled by us anyway, so they automatically carry.
But I'm talking about like vacation and sick time, that's paid out by.
If they're terminated.
Huh?
If there's a termination, that's paid out.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is like somebody from the clerk's office, she pays out all her vacation time, sick time, and all that stuff. We do not pay that out.
I did not, yeah. I did
Yeah,
not-
when
I
she
did not pay
transferred,
zero out.
she transferred
to
that
you all.
too. Yeah, we took all that.
You took all the, yeah, I did not pay out. She didn't want it paid out.
Magistrate Elkins?
Judge, I would just offer this, and it seems to be, at least to me, much ado about nothing. I don't think we should I think we should always, when it comes down to the decision of whether we're gonna give something to the county employee or not, I think we should always at least attempt to err on the side of the employee, if possible. You know, and I just, if there needs to be something more written in our code, then I think we should do so.
We probably can make it more clear in the code. The question is, do we want to spend, here's really the question, do we want to spend $1,000 to amend the code so that we can pay out $800? I mean, so it really doesn't make sense. I mean, that's what we're fighting over is a few $100s.
Right, I don't think we should amend the code until we amend the code for many reasons. We might make a note that we amend the code for this reason as well at some point when the code needs to be amended for other reasons too.
So do you want a motion?
Sure.
I'll make the motion that we treat, you want it on an individual or a broad basis?
Whatever you all are comfortable with. You just make a motion and we'll talk about it.
I mean, as far as our compensation
I think
plan,
it should be broad if you're asking my opinion.
I'll do that. I'll make the motion to broad. If you transfer from another department and weren't terminated in continuous service, that counts towards your longevity and time of service.
I'll second that.
Any discussion?
And it's just, I'm off suggesting this as a possible friendly amendment. Should include retirement in there with dismissal. So if you had an employee that say retires, 6 months later, he or she wants to come back and work for another county agency, should he or she then have to start from scratch?
I agree, yeah, they should have to start from scratch, yes.
Retirement ought to be lumped in with dismissal as far as break in service, but if there's no break in service, I'm in agreement.
I'll accept that as a friendly amendment.
That's a retirement issue. That's not an issue that we can say, I think you have to be out of the retirement system for 1 year.
Right.
Before you start over again. So just to clarify, I believe it's a 1 year that you have to be out of retirement.
Okay. Travis?
Just some discussion, you ready for discussion?
Sure.
I fully support the transfer as long as employees are in good standing. I take no issue with that personally. But I do note in the minutes in the December meeting was a 22-year anniversary, and I think we determined that that's incorrect. So
Oh, yeah, that is
that
incorrect.
needs to be
Yeah, we can fix
I
that.
was given that date. Cheryl gave me that date.
That was my original start date. Yeah.
So
That
It was
was,
just a misunderstanding.
what should it be?
that is the original start date, but there was a separation of service for 43 and a half months.
When was that?
I wasn't working there, that was way back.
When was that?
Well,
Pardon me?
honestly, I can't give you an exact date.
Okay.
How, was it 10 years ago, 20 years ago,
No, not 20 years ago. no.
but over 10?
Probably close to 10.
Okay.
Probably 2007, maybe. I know maybe about the time I retired from the city, I was thinking, I'm not really sure.
Maybe.
I'm thinking that's just from my recollection.
Yeah, I would have
Okay. I think we probably need to leave the retirement language out, Magistrate Davis, simply because it may conflict with some state regulation that we're unaware
That
of.
was only just a suggestion.
Okay.
For purposes of discussion, I'm glad we clarified it.
Okay. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor respond by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Nay.
That motion carries. All right. Magistrate comments. Magistrate Thompson.
I got several things, Judge. First of all, the city recently came up with a COVID-19 relief program for businesses within the city limits. Not saying where to go with it, but I think that the county should have that discussion for businesses that are outside the city limits, and I'd like to be a part of that discussion if you wanted to facilitate that, Judge. I have two businesses in my district that have reached out to me, both that are in dire straits due to the governor's mandates and restrictions and orders that have come in. I know money is tight. I know it's not something we necessarily want to talk about, but I think it's something we should talk about. And I just would like to see that maybe on the next agenda. If you want to talk about it in the interim, I'm available. Would like to be a part of it. Secondly, I'd like to commend the sheriff. It sounds like you're going to have a good amount. Is he still here?
No, I think they stepped out.
I'm still going to commend him. Sounds like he's going to have a good amount of excess fees, and I think he's done a fantastic job managing a difficult budget in 2020. So I'm glad to hear that. And last, just a clerical thing, do we need to note in the minutes that the jailer provided us an update on COVID-19 in jail today?
Go ahead and note that in the minutes.
Okay, what is it? I don't have it.
Did you? I'll give you mine here. If I can find it.
You have an extra copy?
She's got mine. She's got mine, Frank. I've already looked at it.
Comment on that.
Sure, go ahead.
I'll keep this brief, so I apologize. Just so everyone's aware of, and the reason why I wanted to furnish this, even Magistrate Constantopoulos brought to my attention, there were some things placed out on Facebook that was probably incorrect, but, thank good there's some of us that realize that everything you see on Facebook is not factual and everything. But on January the 9th here, we were made aware of an inmate that was in one of our work crews. He had other underlying health issues. He did test positive when he was tested at the hospital. Of course, we followed our protocol and procedure. Everyone in this cell was placed in quarantine. It was related to one cell. Since March 20th, we followed all the regulations, recommendations from Department of Corrections to avoid this virus. Our staff has worked diligently, showing the care and conscientiousness in their work and duties, having cleaning crews, deep cleaning, disinfecting each shift. The detention center has purchased equipment hoping to assist us in keeping this inevitable virus out of our jail. For 11 months, many steps have been taken to avoid this virus, including placing hand sanitizers anywhere we can in every cell, next to elevators, video courtrooms, high traffic areas. This is just a testament that I'd like to say how well the jail staff has performed at keeping this virus at bay, because there's never a question of if, but rather a matter of when it would strike. I want to, and I know you already have today, but I want to reiterate this. The Clark County Health Department has communicated extremely well with us since the beginning. Most of our staff
has been administered their first vaccine. On January the 12th at 8:30 a.m., the Clark County Health Department performed the COVID rapid test on the inmates in the cell of the above-mentioned inmate that was in. All test results were negative. All the employees that had contact with the above-mentioned cell were also tested, and the results were negative. The only employee that's been in the cell since then was myself, to instruct the people of how we were going to step through the process of making sure that everyone was safe. So I was tested also and tested negative. So it's just something other I felt when it comes to a liability issue and a public issue. I want the court and I want the public to be aware of it. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Frank. Anything else, Magistrate Thompson?
No, sir, thank you.
Thank you. Magistrate Constantopoulos?
No, Judge, just appreciate your quick work on getting the temporary boiler in there, everybody that helped out. I know it was cold in here, so I appreciate y'all's hard work, everybody that helped out with that.
Special thanks to the fire department and Chief Asbury. They were pretty much, I would come in and check and make sure that it wasn't too cold at about midnight, and he would come in at about 5 and turn on the heat, and this was a daily process for us for a good week and a half there, and just a lot of good work from our fire department. They were checking the CO levels and everything we could ask them to do, so I appreciate their work there. Magistrate Blanton?
Just a comment, and if it's out of order, you correct me. Just want to comment on the actions that took place last Wednesday at our nation's capital. As I watched, I was saddened, I was angered. Really, words could not express the emotions that I had. But today, I'm confident that justice will prevail, and the very principles of which our democracy was founded on will live on, and with justice being served and democracy prevailing in the end.
Thank you, Magistrate Blanton. Magistrate Davis?
Nothing at this time, Judge. Thank you.
Magistrate Elkins?
A couple of things, unfortunately, Judge. There's that property on Wayland Heights still that we need to do something with, and I don't really know what at this point we can or should do, but I think you're aware of it, the county attorney's aware of it, the investigator is. So I might have to at least look into that again and kick that ball back.
That's something I contact the county attorney about probably every couple weeks. My understanding is it's being prosecuted, and that the county attorney investigator is also working on the notice and fine and all that as well.
I guess my question would be, can the county take action? And you probably don't know this, but I would ask you to find out, can the county take action and go ahead and do the cleanup while we wait on the prosecution and carry it?
Yeah, I don't necessarily know that.
That would be my question there. And second, the one thing that the magistrates need to think about and understand is with the COVID, Clark County Detention Center is going to go over budget this year. It's going to happen. I know in years past I've said if we're not careful, they're going to. It's going to happen, and in large part through no fault of their own, but we're going to have to deal with it at some point. We're going to have to do a budget amendment, and I would encourage everybody to be looking at that, thinking about it. Last year, we transferred out of the general fund just a little over $1 million, and that was a year where the detention center was only impacted by COVID for maybe 4 months during that fiscal year, last fiscal year. This fiscal year, the detention center will be, when it's said and done, impacted by COVID for the full 12 months. So, it was $1 million last year at 4 months. I don't know what it's going to be this year, but it's going to be north of $1 million, and we need to start thinking about that, figuring out what we're going to do with it, and be ready for it when it comes. Just don't want anybody to be surprised by it. I've got nothing further, Judge.
May I ask you to take just a short recess, and let's introduce the board, our Attorney General, Daniel Cameron.
I will adjourn so that we can finish magistrate comments, because I do have a couple things I wanted to talk about, so that we can introduce the Attorney General. We'll make this a, what do you think, 10 minutes?
Oh, yeah. Judge, it would be my honor, if I may. And I have to say this because it's so important to me, that having practiced all over the Commonwealth, from Paducah to Kent County, from Ashland to London, that I knew that Daniel Cameron was going to make a great Attorney General. And it's with everything within my heart, my mind, my intellect, that I want to thank him for the job he's done and congratulate him on being our Kentucky Attorney General. Appreciate that.
Well, thank you, William, for that very kind remark. And I don't intend to hijack the meeting. I did just want to, it's often good for us to get out of Frankfurt and just have conversations with people and see folks. And
Amen.
Doing okay, But again, just thank you all for the great service, Judge Pace, and all of you all that sit here on the fiscal court. I know you do incredibly important work, and as Mr. Elkins was saying, even in the midst of COVID-19, we have to continue to work hard and diligently to provide services to our folks in our respective counties. And just know that the Attorney General's office wants to continue to be a good partner and a good neighbor to all of our respective counties. And so part of the reason we're here is just to say, raise our hand and say we're here to help in any way that we can, whether it be the drug epidemic, whether it be continuing to fight human trafficking. Yesterday, or a couple of days ago, we just unveiled a new media campaign called Your Eyes Save Lives, which is a $100,000 grant that we got from the Department of Justice to help us really bring awareness to this challenge that we have here in the Commonwealth of Kentucky. So we're going to continue to work hard for you in the AG's office and continue to stand firm as a partner to all the people in our respective counties. And again, just want to say thank you for the good work that you all are doing as members of this fiscal court, but also as concerned citizens. And so appreciate you. Appreciate the time this morning. Thank you, and sorry for the brief interruption. God bless you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Judge, if I may, I abbreviate it, I'll go ahead and reconvene this first.
I was gonna, since I don't believe anyone left that was here before, I'm gonna go ahead and reconvene if no one has a problem with that, and let Magistrate Elkins continue his comments.
Yeah, I abbreviated. The only thing that I wanted to add to that is that Magistrate Thompson, Judge Pace, the jailer Doyle, Mr. Salmons have met numerous times to discuss the budget issues coming up, and myself, and thank you for that. And we know it's coming. I just want to give everybody a heads up, because I think it's important that the taxpayers and the board, this full committee, or this full board understands that it's coming, and be ready for it. It's not going to be pretty, but it's work that must be done at some point in the future. Thank you.
Jailer, did you want to say something?
No, I was just going to reiterate what Magistrate said.
Okay.
Listen, I think the magistrates that have been willing to sit down and listen to us and try and get yourself, let us educate each other on what it takes. I couldn't sit here and do some of your office jobs, but I'll assure you we know what it takes to operate that jail by law. But the good thing is, with all the communications we've had going on, with you all involved, it makes us all feel a lot more comfortable, just having the excellent communications. It makes a difference. There's things that are involved with this, as Magistrate Evans has talked about, COVID. We didn't create this virus, we didn't create this beast, but we are the ones that have to deal with it. So I'll be honest with you, I'm glad to have you all on my team to help us get through this, and we'll get through it. It's kind of like walking trip to fall. You dust the dirt off, hey, we're gonna try it again.
today. So I appreciate you.
Thank you.
so much.
Thank you, Frank, so much for working with us, and we'll continue to meet. I look forward to our next gathering. Anything else, Magistrate Elkins?
No, sir, that's it.
Okay, I have a couple of things. So we touched on Senate Bill 1 earlier when Becky was here. I wanted to notify you all that Rolling Thunder has the flags for the POWs in their possession. They would like to have a ceremony on January 23rd at noon, which is a Saturday, if any of you all would like to attend. Frankly, considering some of the actions that have occurred even in the state of Kentucky in the past week, I think it's good that we have a ceremony to raise the flag, that we properly honor it, and that we show as Clark Countyans how we feel about our patriotism. Second, I have a proclamation that I would like to read. This will take me a moment, so please bear with me. A proclamation. The preamble to our nation's Declaration of Independence states that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Similarly, the Kentucky Bill of Rights begins by enumerating first the right of enjoying and defending lives and liberties. However, we must admit our failure in this defense. More than 60 million unborn children have died due to legalized abortion. To put this into context, less than 2 million Americans have died in all wars combined. We will never know the true depth and breadth of these lives lost. A doctor who would have cured cancer, a gifted musician or actor, how many potential magistrates, county judges, representatives, or even governors? The next Michael Jordan, Billy Graham, or Babe Ruth. As elected officials, we speak often of defending our constituents, yet far too often we remain conveniently silent when it comes to defending the most vulnerable of these souls. A society that does not value life, all life, has little value of its own. In 1984, President Ronald Reagan designated the anniversary of the Supreme Court decision in Roe v. Wade, which struck down state anti-abortion laws, as the first National Sanctity of Life Day in the United States. Since then, similar proclamations have been made by both Presidents Bush and most recently President Trump. Today, we have the opportunity in our county and in our homes to reflect upon God's gift of life and on our responsibility to cherish and defend those least able to defend themselves. It is towards this purpose that now, therefore, I, Chris Pace, Judge Executive of Clark County, Kentucky, do hereby proclaim January 22nd, 2021 as Sanctity of Human Life Day in Clark County. I call upon the citizens of Clark County on that day to remember the lives that have been lost and to give special appreciation and consideration to our duty to appreciate the wonder and blessing of our brief existence. In witness whereof, I have hereunto set my hand this 13th of January in the year of our Lord, 2021. That's what I've got. Okay, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Any discussion?
Davison, you.
Seeing none, all those in favor respond by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries.
Daniel, I need to get with you on that one. And do you want that, do you want, Chris, do you want that proclamation of the minutes? Because I don't normally put magistrate comments